Good evening. I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting on July 8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. We have three items on the agenda this evening. We have a capital bond request in the amount of $10,270,000. We have a proposed ordinance amendment to the city code for new and existing positions in the FY 2025 budget. And we also have a proposed ordinance amendment to the city code within the Public Works Department. I will begin with order number 24-100-9204A, communication from Mayor Dumas with a capital bond request for FY24 from this year's capital improvement plan, totaling $10,270,000. The entirety of this year's borrowing is to support facilities, utilities, and street projects by the Department of Public Works. I'll begin by reading the letter submitted by the mayor. Dear Council President Ossing and councilors, enclosed for your review and approval the capital bond request for FY24 from this year's capital improvement plan, totaling $10,270,000. The entirety of this borrowing is to support facilities, utilities, and street projects by the Department of Public Works. Thankfully, all other items in this year's capital improvement plan were able to be funded through free cash. The projects that this borrowing will support include road pavement, reconstruction, water main replacements, drainage improvements, upgrades to the wading pools and splash pads, and several other projects. The borrowing will continue our long-term investment in Marlboro's infrastructure, ensuring that we do not fall behind on critical projects. Included is a list of itemized projects and projected cost of each included, as well as a breakdown of the impact on the average household tax bill in response to borrowing, as well as the bond orders. Acting Commissioner Scott, Comptroller Williams, Audra Smith, and I will be at a future Finance Committee meeting to answer any questions you may have. Sincerely, J. Christian Dumas, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor. We'll probably, as the committee, we'll start with the first bond for the $6 million. And I'll leave it up to the Finance Committee if we have some questions in regards to that.
And DPW is here as well to answer any and all questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. For the committee's review, this is most of the bond amount. I'll open that up for discussion. Councilor Facillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here tonight. Just a general question first. I know we're going to focus specifically on the $6 million infrastructure bond, but I noticed that each individual bond is worded a little generally. Obviously, this is my first bond process, so I'm just trying to get a grasp of what we're dealing with. So, are we contractually obligated to those projects that are in the memo in any way? Or is this kind of, you know, that's the plan, here are the bonds that are going to pay for those plans? Or is there some sort of obligation to that memo of the work we're doing? I'm just trying to get like a general understanding of that.
We're not obligated as of yet because we do not have the funding for the project. So
Sure. So I guess my question is, so going with the first one, the example, so the $6 million, we have these, 6 different projects that we're going to deal with. Would there be any instance where we change a project or say, oh, we no longer want to do Hemingway or we're going to put those funds somewhere else once we bond the money? Are we changing those projects or are those set in stone? Those are the projects we're doing.
Those are the projects we're
doing. Okay. Yeah, that was just a general question. Like, again, this is...
If something came up and we wanted to try to use that money, I think we'd come back to you and say, oh, we have an emergency, we're going to push this one off, and we want to use that money for something else.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
There's a lot of back design work that needs to happen with these projects beforehand, so just to do like a bait and switch wouldn't be the most ideal.
Yeah, right.
Just because of the legwork that's already been done to get these projects to move forward, to come before you, that's kind of where we're at. So there's no plan for me to
No. Not at all what I was implying. Really just for me to get an understanding of what we're working on here and what we're looking at. Like I said, I haven't seen a bond before being on finance, so just trying to get an understanding of what we're working with. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
President Austin.
So if I can help Council Fitzgerald, so the reason the language is intentionally vague is to allow them to go out to sell the bond. And if they said, we're trying to sell the bond saying we're gonna redo Hildreth Street or redo a causeway, no one's gonna buy it. So, because they know cities' plans changes. So the reason all those bonds are worded specifically that way is to allow the flexibility. So they're before us saying this is what they plan to do. Can they change it tomorrow after the bond's approved? Yes. Should they and not tell us? No. But that's the reason legally that's how you go out, and they will, Mr. Williams will now try to sell the bonds with our advisors, but they're intentionally worded vaguely so that you can go out to bid and someone will actually buy the bond.
And if I could piggyback on that, Mr. President, through the chair, the funding's the same. It's pretty vague as well, because if we can utilize free cash at the time, then we can. So it just allows us to, so you know what the project is, how it's being funded. So if we do utilize free cash for some other projects, obviously it'll come down to council, so we don't have to utilize the bond. So that's why that verbiage is there as well, is to give the mayor some wiggle room, but obviously we'll be coming down for that transparency to utilize free cash with you guys' authority as well, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Biden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of these items is in my ward, and I know my constituents will be asking me, when is it going to start? Is it going to include the entire street? When will it be done? How much will this interrupt our daily life? And I'm talking about Hemingway Street, but could you kind of go over all the streets and kind of say, or best you can, is it going to be the entire street? Is it going to be portions of the street? Is it going to include other things other than the street, like culverts and so forth and so on? Thank you.
Yeah, sure, Counselor. I'm looking at the list now just to make sure, but I'm fairly certain that any of the streets that we've listed for resurfacing would include the whole street. And then some of them, some of the bigger ones like Lincoln Street, you see, and Chandler Street include a lot of utility work too. But in the case of Hemingway, that's a resurfacing of the whole street.
Will they be done next year? Is that the goal?
Well, so we talked about this today, and a lot of it's going to depend on when the funding gets approved. We're kind of like pretty much at the limit of when we can get a project like that started and finished this year. Even just the bidding process alone takes a good month. And then it takes another several weeks to get the contractor under contract. And then you're at their mercy of, can they move in tomorrow to start the project? So the goal is to start something like a Hemingway and a Hager and finish it this year, but there's some big caveats to that, you know.
But no later than next year?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor Biden. Any further, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Talking about Ward 2 and, you know, the two sore points, basically the culvert for Maui Brook, that was last year's disaster. You guys did an incredible job putting that back together again. I know it's a temporary fix. How solid is the scope of work trying to get that repaired at this point, considering that's pretty recent stuff?
So you're talking, Counselor, about the Maui Brook under Farm Road.
That is correct,
Yeah,
yes.
so
Yeah.
we had, after that, we commissioned a study of 4 of the major culverts on Maui Brook. So Phelps Street, Royce Road, there's a culvert under our sewer trunk line, and then Farm Road.
Yes.
All of which had experienced flooding last year. What came from that study is generally that they're all undersized, but I think the priority is Phelps Street. Phelps Street, we also had early last year or the prior year, a collapse of that culvert. So there was a sinkhole on the road and we had to do an emergency repair of that one.
Okay.
Such that that one experiences overtopping.
That happened before.
More
yes.
frequently than any of the others. So that study is complete, and that I believe is going to be our priority is Phelps Street in terms of a replacement project There may also have to be some more interim work at Farm Road.
Okay,
as part of
okay.
this funding.
As far as Phelps Street go, is the intent to increase the size of the culvert to allow more flow?
Yes.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay. And anything on Hager Pond aside from evaluation at this point? Is it just the evaluation of the Hager Pond Dam?
Oh, yeah, I don't have any updates on that.
Thank you, but I appreciate, yeah, okay, okay. Thank you.
Councilor Landers.
Quick question on the Hildreth Street stormwater drain. Does that go back to Essex Street and then right down to Kane Drive, or is that project?
So the issue on Hildreth Street is a section of drain at the bottom of Hildreth near Cook.
Right, yeah.
That's the bottom of a really large drainage catchment area, and the pipes are just undersized there, and they're fairly flat. So this project is that section toward the end of Hildreth near Cook, and then it goes down Cook, sort of to the bottom, and then it goes down a common driveway where we have an easement to an outfall into Maury Brook.
Okay.
So that's the section that needs to get upsized.
Will that be done by fall, or you think?
No, it won't be done by fall. Hopefully, that's another one. We hope to get it started. You know, we get a contractor under contract that can move in quickly. We'll start to talk about exactly what they can get done by the fall, but that's a big project, so I expect that to go into the spring.
Mr. Chairman, just one other question. I was curious about Burns Road, McGee, and Conrad. It's not my ward, but is that just resurfacing, or is there gas pipes there and water pipes that you have to do too? Or?
No, so that neighborhood, the gas mains were replaced probably 5 years ago now.
Oh, that's good.
They did a large replacement project, and so we decided to move in there after they finished, and we actually got some payment in lieu of funding from them since they didn't have to do their final paving. They gave us some money towards the initial phase of that neighborhood that we did, so this is the next phase of that. So it's resurfacing and it's new sidewalks.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Good move.
Thank you, Councilor Landers. Oh, Councilor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, gentlemen. Question on the stormwater management drainage work, both at Hildreth Street, the culvert replacements. Is this based on the fact of age, or is this from climate change and the, as we know, the flooding last year on Farm Road area, closing that down? This is $2.5 million, and obviously there's a real cost if it's being aggravated by climate change. And I was just curious, is it structurally just ready, or was it also due to not overuse, but from the excessive rains we've been getting?
So in the case of like a Phelps Road culvert, that one was a combination of age. It was an old metal culvert that was corroded. But I think the big storms we saw last summer showed that those culverts and a lot of our drain systems are undersized. You know, there's been a lot of development since those drains were built. So there's a lot more runoff now than there was 50, 60 years ago. So that being said, when we design the new projects, they're designed with that in mind and sort of, you know, compounding these big storm events and the flash flood events that we've seen, and so that we're prepared for those and we can hopefully mitigate and eliminate the flooding in the future.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Chair, just additional question. I'm looking for the title, but for the new position of the person that will oversee some of our contracts and so forth at the DPW as well as other projects, will there be the process of reviewing all our culverts and infrastructure to make sure it's structurally sound? I mean, I'm not sure what the projection may be for additional work in the city. Already we're at $2.5 million on these two, and are we expecting additional needs in other areas where stormwater is a concern?
Yeah, so we're doing that already. We've kind of got a lot of that study work underway. We've done a program to inventory all the culverts, done inspections, so we've got a good records of the size and slope and material of all the culverts, and we'll use that, we'll cross-reference that with where areas that we know tend to flood, and all that information will be used. We'll build on that going forward.
And is this one of the reasons you're asking for that development-type engineer for the DPW as well?
The capital projects manager.
Thank you.
Is more for these jobs, but also for the facility jobs and also for the large jobs like the library, the future fire station, the potential future school. That stuff has to be watched really closely. We can't rely on third parties to do the job. We have to have a man on there so that we can ensure we're getting what the city wants and we're not wasting money.
I know we're not on that part, but I was bring it up later. I definitely support it. I saw it with the school being built in Ashland where they had their own town resource being the oversight person for the project. What a difference it makes. But back to this is, if there could be, I don't know, Tom, if Tom's position would do it, but I'd like to someday see where we stand with all our infrastructure for additional needs. That's what my question was more or less, so thank you for the answer.
That's mine and the engineering's department's responsibility, so that's what we're working on, and we're happy to come back and give you some more.
Down the road when you have a semi-report ready or whatever, I'd like to see the status, because obviously we don't want to see what happened on Farm Road last year, but not saying it can't happen with all the excessive rain we've been getting and weather events, so thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Council Lassie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, this is a $6 million bond for infrastructure. It covers the Hilda Street drainage, the culverts, Fort Meadow Dam, Hemingway and Hager Streets, Chandler Streets, Byrne, McGee, and Conrad. So the plan is to try and start them all this year and finish them in 2025. So I would encourage the Finance Committee to motion to approve that bond and suspend the rules at the appropriate at our next meeting to approve it.
Mr. Chair, sorry, someone else needs the floor.
I will move that to approve the bond and ask for a suspension of the rules. But really quickly, before I won't belabor the point, last question, Fort Meadow Dam. Is there an issue there right now, or is this just general maintenance?
So we have to do periodic inspections on those, and the last inspection, there's some minor maintenance type things that we need to do, but the big thing that came from this inspection was that all the trees need to be cut from the dam, and there's some big trees up there. So I'm not really sure why that hadn't been made an issue before, but it's clear that the state has made it clear that you can't have the trees on the dam, so that's a big piece of the work we need to do this time.
Perfect. And with that, I would move to approve the bond of $6 million for infrastructure.
I will second that. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the appropriated amount of $6 million for infrastructure, construction, and reconstruction. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, and I didn't mean to interrupt my ward councilor, but we're thinking the same way. I had a question on the dam, and I was going to motion, so thank you to my ward councilor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries 4-0. Thank you. All right, so...
Can I have a suspension on that?
And for suspension, yes. Next item up is the appropriated amount of $500,000 for the landfill and post-closure development. Councilor Pasillo.
I guess we're busy in Ward 6 tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question about it. So I understand that we're putting some recreation fields up there. Just trying to understand what is kind of going on with that project. What are we doing right now? Are there any issues? Kind of where do we stand?
Yeah, Councilor. So back in 2020, the council appropriated $3 million to do some work that needed to be done to get the old cap. So that landfill it stopped operating in the late 70s, early 80s, and was capped at that time. Back around 2014 or so, the city was going to build a recreation complex up there, and the permitting for that project, it came to light with DEP that neither the state nor the city had really kept up with the monitoring that should have been happening. So they put some requirements on the city at that time, so we had to scrap that recreation complex plan and go into what has been now a good 8 years of assessment and design work. And now the work we're doing is, there were some areas at the outskirts of the landfill where there was waste that didn't really get capped sufficiently. So the waste has been dug out from those areas, consolidated on the southwest part of the site, and then that part of the site it will have a state-of-the-art cap, and it's been graded. And what the council appropriated in 2020 was to do the necessary repairs and then to prepare the southwest part of the site for some sort of active use. So when this project is done, hopefully by this winter, all the cap will be sufficient. There'll be a new cap in place and a field on the top part of the site, which I refer to as like an open park. There's no plans really to have ball fields there, at least initially. But it'll be a grass park with a walking trail adjacent to the rail trail. It's actually going to be a beautiful spot up there. But that's what this is for. So the money was appropriated in 2020. Now that we're under construction, at the end of the day, there was more waste that had to be reconsolidated than we had planned, and then there's been a couple change orders for some other repairs that came to light, sort of drainage downshoots and different seepage areas and things that needed to be repaired. That's the reason for the additional funding.
Thank you.
Councilor Oro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, on that same discussion, so in the long run, we're looking at, because when you do I was involved with the landfill in Ashland. We had to do the same thing. They're usually every 30 years, so be ready in another 30 years because they depreciate from the trash disposal. But the question is the use, because I know we were looking at that too, passive use versus active use. So presently, we're remediating for passive use for this park, for this walk area. Is that what we're looking at?
Active use.
Active. So we're going to the higher
Anytime you have people
tier.
that are going to be on it,
Yep.
it's active use.
So can be a sporting activity type use too?
It could be conceivably. It'll be graded for
Yeah,
that.
so that's fine. I was just curious because I know you're in tiers, correct? If I remember right, you do it in different tiers. If you want active use, you're a different tier than if you want just passive or no use, from what I can remember. But we're at 3.5 million. You mentioned 3 million and now 1.5 million. So the waste will be consolidated on our own property, I presume. It's just being
Correct.
moved.
It already has been.
It already has been recapped and all, as you mentioned. So that's fine. It's unfortunate, but this is what happens at every town landfill in the whole country. You know, you have to remediate every so often. So I'm glad to see it is being remediated. It was concerning when it was not being activated as quick as it could be, but I want to thank you for moving along with this, and I think this should also get a suspension for the bond, so we can continue to move on as quick as possible to remediate the landfill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As back to the cap and the sports area, the recreational area, is that recreation area going to be adjacent to the actual cap, or is it on top of the cap?
It'll be on top of the new cap.
On top of the new cap?
Yep.
Okay, okay. How long, what's the life expectancy of the new cap before deterioration?
I think indefinitely. That it's a material that doesn't break down, and it's going to be protected by like a foot of sand
Okay.
on each side. So.
Okay, okay, thank you for that.
Councilor Doucette. No further discussion. I'll entertain, Councilor Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You talked about numerous times where we already invested into this property. Is this the last time that we are going to be sitting at in this forum talking about putting more money into the old dump?
So we'll have to do monitoring. So we monitor the groundwater and the surface water around the landfill, and we're going to be doing that in perpetuity, I would say. But in terms of large-scale remediation type project, for the foreseeable future, I don't anticipate anything else.
Like to make a motion?
Yes.
Accept the bond?
I think there's a question. Councilor Adams.
John, Mr. Chairman, one quick question. At one time, we talked about putting solar panels up there. Is that gone now, is that passé?
I have not got any requests for solar. The council approved a zoning overlay for a portion of that site, but I haven't heard of any requests for it.
And I'm not requesting it.
I would suggest, once it's done, you go take a look at that and see the $1 million view before you think about solar panels, as much as we'd like solar panels.
I think I agree with you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bio, could you repeat? I didn't hear you.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept the $500,000 bond,
And would we like,
92044B.
and would we like to ask for a suspension on that? The next one? Motion has been made. I'll second that to approve the $500,000 appropriated bond for the landfill and post-closure development and ask for a suspension. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries 4-0. Next up is the sum of $1 million for the construction and reconstruction and/or improvement of municipal pools and splash pads and recreational facilities. Any questions in regards to that for the council? President Ossie.
Ted or Tom, can you kind of go through what the actual changes are at Hildreth and Ward Park? Because, I mean, I'll be candid, the Ward Park one, eliminating the pool, no one knows about that, and that, I don't know how well that's going to go over. So I'm not sure if this is without some sort of media campaign to go say we're going to take out that pool. But I'll let you guys tell us what you think.
So the wading pool at Hildreth, so the reason why we're doing this is I think we had some money before to try to repair these. You just can't repair them anymore. So then when we go to the design consultant, we were saying, oh, we want to put another wading pool, and he's like, nobody puts those in anymore. They're either a full-size pool or a splash pad. But in discussion with Recreation, who tend to know what people want, they had the idea that we keep it at Hildreth and then put the splash pad at Ward Park. That was the idea, the intent.
So I guess I would go to with no PR campaign, this is going to go over like not so good. So is this really the right, I mean, not that it's a bad idea.
It's not a PR thing. So when we're looking at Ward Park specifically, the runoff and all the rain that we're getting, it literally goes into the actual pool. So to maintain that, it's a lot more of an effort. Just based upon our weather climate now, it's something that I do not want to do. It's just something that needs to get done to maintain the pH balance and the runoff from the hill of Ward Park. It's just not situated in a great location, unfortunately. And then to actually move that and then rebuild another wading pool, it doesn't make sense to build another wading pool when it's not. It doesn't work well.
I'm not arguing the logistics of it. Have
and
you
trust
talked to
me,
the ward councilor and got his buy-in or acknowledgement? Because that ward councilor is going to get a lot of blowback.
In representing Ward 3, like you know, Ward Park is very near and dear to my heart, but from a financial component and actually the time and the resources it takes after every rain and runoff, to invest this much money into build another wading pool to have it break
Again,
down.
I'm not arguing that, but have you talked to the ward councilor
I
is my
will
question.
I will reach out to him. I have not as of yet.
Thanks.
No, thank you.
No further discussion. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion's been made, and I will second that to approve the $1 million appropriated bond amount for the municipal pools, splash pads, and recreational facilities. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries 4-0. Next up is appropriated amount in $350,000 for the expansion and improvement to the Evergreen Cemetery. I'll open that up for discussion by the Finance Committee. Councilor Fischel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you just kind of describe what it is that's going on here? Is it an ongoing expansion? Kind of what are we hoping to accomplish with this?
Sure. So probably 5 years back, we started the initial design because we knew the cemetery was reaching its limit. So we had a design, trying to look out going into the woods, going up towards the road, up on the hill. That's right, kind of like a lay down area right now. Areas kind of when you're driving around the flagpole. It identified a lot of areas. The areas in the woods really aren't feasible. You'd have to do so much work just to get in there, to get past the wetlands, past the ledge, past the. I mean, in 30 years, if we're still trying to do it, maybe that's viable. But right now, if you go to the cemetery and you're driving, you go to the left. We're in the last section, K. We're in the last section of selling lots now. There's 200. I think we're 50 into it now. We're a quarter of the way through already. So we have that, and then the area up the hill and towards the road. That is where we're going to concentrate our expansion, and probably in the area where you're driving, we can get some things there. So what happens in a cemetery is the area we're in now was, there was buildings there. There's a lot of stuff that was just backfilled, huge boulders, all kinds of, it's very substandard. In a cemetery, when you're digging a grave, you hit a rock, you can kind of move it out of the way, but once you put that burial in there, and you come back 5 years later and you're trying to dig with everybody around you and you hit a rock, you're in trouble. Because you try to pull up on the rock and you start to pull up the existing graves. So we're in that area now. K, we've started to find some areas where these boulders are because we're approaching that. Test pits were done up on, well, everywhere, but up in that area we want to use. We found like collapsed buildings, old wells. There's a lot of stuff in there. That's all going to have to be pretty much pulled out, screened, and backfilled back in. Plus, we'll be able to identify where the ledge is. Some areas have ledge, maybe for cremations, won't get a full burial in there. And part of that with the change in grade is we're going to have to put a retaining wall in there. And the new age in cemeteries was what they call niche walls, where you put the cremations in the wall with a square and it has the person's name on it. A lot of cemeteries have those now. The retaining wall would become the niche wall, so you'd have a dual purpose. So that's the big plan. What we're trying to get done now is K is in trouble. We want to try to pull up the areas that haven't been done and try to clean them up, backfill them, and then try to start in an area up there where we can start digging out and see what we find. And at some point, the way we're projecting, the way people are buying lots, we need to be completed with a full expansion in 3 years. So right now, at some point, we're going to have to come back down and ask for maybe, it's probably somewhat between 2 and 2.5 million to do the full expansion. But right now, we need to like keep going. So the expansion has been around, it just hasn't come down to you guys. So now we're just trying to get by, and then we'll bring down the full expansion for you to see if you want to do it in phases, do you want to do the full thing, or how we want to approach it. But this gives us a little breathing room here because we're kind of behind the 8 ball at this point. So that's pretty much what the money's being used for. And that will be used right away for that section K. And then eventually we'll identify areas to go up in that expansion area. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Now, on that, what's the projected time? Is this something that you want to implement immediately, Commissioner?
Yes. So section K, we would, if we got the money, we'd go right after that because that affects what we're burying now. And then we would put out probably a bigger contract for up above. We'd look at the test pits and try to find an area where we could maybe get an area that's not as bad and clear it out and maybe create another section there to buy us some time.
That's just to kind of buy you some time on that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. President Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as many of you know, I'm not a big fan of paying interest, right? So this $350,000 bond is going to cost us $221,000 in interest. So I think an item like this would be better used to be taken out of free cash in September. So I would encourage the Finance Committee to request the mayor send down a free cash transfer in September when free cash is certified and not bond $350,000. It's eventually going to cost us $570,000. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Vital?
I have a couple of questions here. One is, just so I know the area that you're looking to expand, again, it's in my ward, so, and you're going to be approaching either one or the other streets. There's a cul-de-sac, Sheridan, that I'm looking at. And that's kind of like the northern end of the cemetery. And there's a road that's out there, but not a whole lot of grassy areas. Is that the area you're talking about expanding? Or are you talking about expanding up, kind of like there's a dirt parking lot that's kind of approaching Wilson Street? Is that where you're talking about expanding?
Well, the whole area would be up for expansion, but it's pretty much the dirt parking lot is this the first area. That area up the hill, there's a lot of ledge, and based upon test pits, I don't know how many we get up there. The current design doesn't call for going too far up there.
Thank you, Councilor Vital.
Thank you.
Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President sitting to my left, but I was going to ask the question, have you decided or have you reviewed the opportunity for free cash versus bonding? It makes...
Absolutely. This is a way just for the capital improvement projects to be sent down to council, and then again, the verbiage here that the mayor can utilize any authority. I just want to make sure the project gets done, and I'd be more than happy to come down with the next even few items with free cash. I just want to make sure that this project gets approved so we can get to work on them. I'll be more than happy to come down in September with any free cash that you want to utilize. It's just now a timing thing, you know, so I just want to make sure that council's aware of the project, we can get the project done, start it, finish it, and then if we use free cash, we'll use free cash.
And I would...
It completely makes sense. But again, this is a capital project that came to light that we want to utilize, and if we'll come down in September with free cash. But I just want the project to go, and I don't want to wait till September because then we can't start the project.
Timing seems to be an issue, but at the same time, I like to see us save from the interest that we would have to pay.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
I don't think any of us would disagree as well, but what I was going to ask, within the cemetery itself, do we have any supplemental monies from user fees that people pay for their grave sites and so forth? Is there any money in that account?
There's some perpetual care money.
Yes, perpetual care. Is there enough to do some of the emergency work right now?
For this, we tend not to touch perpetual care, and it's not.
So this is more of like a capital project, so. Yeah. But I would suggest that we see this as soon as possible once we know our free cash, and I would be in support of it based on the issues that are occurring there, but I would have trouble supporting it as a bonded project. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I guess the question is, if we could do the free cash, which makes sense, what time frame would, because we get certified in September, maybe October, to get this project going. Is there a way that we can still get this going and just lean towards doing it by free cash?
So,
Mr. Chairman, if the mayor is agreeable to it, I would say you can approve the bond subject to the mayor coming down in September with a bond rescission and a transfer from free cash, and you can reflect that in your meeting minutes.
and I'm more than happy to do that. So just for some clarification regarding bonds, so if council approves these tonight, we may not bond these for another year or two. So there's time for that. So we don't bond immediately. So there's some time before we actually bond. So where free cash sits, that's why these few little items that are before you, we have a lot of wiggle room when we bond things out. So we can utilize free cash even up to the end of next year because we don't anticipate to bond these immediately. But these projects can't wait. So that's why it's before you now. Let's get the ball rolling, and then we can figure out the free. We're just in a good position where we have free cash, so.
Mr. Chair.
Councilor Oz.
So,
President Osborne.
so the mayor's correct. So while you have to approve the bond, we're the appropriating authority. We can't say wink and a nod, we're gonna go do something in September. We have to approve and give the administration and DPW the authorization to go buy something, all right? So approving the bond now puts them, so they now have it, that the council's appropriated the funding to go do something. Mayor's correct, we may not actually bond it when we go for the bonds, may not be for a year or two, and use bands to cover it. But they need approval to go do something. So you can approve the bond, and I would just say in the notes, have some sort of disclaimer that says the mayor's agreed to rescind the bond and send down free cash when it becomes available in September of this year. But your motion has to be to approve the bond. You can't say motion the mayor to do something in September. That ain't
And
gonna
again,
work.
I'm more than happy to utilize free cash. Again, I just want the project started. That's where we
Mr.
are.
Chair, and the mayor's agreeing, so I would suggest we bond it with the condition, as agreed by the mayor, that it will come back to us to determine the opportunity for free cash.
You have to approve it.
Again, you can't put conditions on the bond. You're either approving the
Sorry.
bond or you're not
Approving it
approving the
with
bond.
the understanding, I guess, not condition, the understanding that the mayor has publicly noted that he will come back to us to look at free cash. We got no conditions then, if we can, but the understanding, as the mayor just noted. So that would be my motion.
I'm making my notes right now, so not a problem.
Thank you. Motion's been made. I will second that, to approve the $350,000 appropriated bond amount of $350,000 for the expansion and improvement to the Evergreen Cemetery, and as noted, with the mayor possibly to send down for rescindment. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Councilor. Next up is the sum of $120,000 to appropriate amount for improvements to municipal buildings and boilers. Open that up for President Osborne.
If there's no finance committee, I would say similar thing, approve the bond for the boiler. The interest payment on that is gonna be $67,000, almost more than half of the cost is in interest. So I would say same thing, mayor come down in September with free cash and rescind the bond, but to approve the bond for the boiler at this point in time.
Councilor Patillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll approve the bond with those conditions that the mayor do come back to rescind the bond and come back in September for free cash.
I will second that motion. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the $120,000 appropriated bond amount for improvements to municipal buildings and boilers, and and as noted, have the mayor send down for rescindment of the bond in September, October. Any further discussion?
Yes. Are there any other major capital investments to the Walker Building? Seems like every couple of years we're throwing more and more money into a building that we don't really know what we're going to do with.
If I had about $15 million laying around, I would be able to do something with the Walker Building. So unfortunately, not at this time, so.
So the boiler just cracked all of a sudden, so that's why it's out of service. There's two boilers, one cracked, so it needs to be replaced before the next heating season. So the other boiler's not that great either, but.
Motion's been made and seconded.
On that motion, I'll ask a question after you.
Motion's been made and, okay, what's your question, Councilor?
And just on the boilers then, the age and so forth, will the new ones be more energy efficient?
Yes.
And is there a chance to
Yeah,
possibly convert them to some geothermal energy? I'm surprised Councilor Doucette didn't ask, but I'm thinking that he may. Just so if for some reason you could connect a geothermal well to it, is that something we're looking at for the Walker
Not at this
Building?
time, because this is more of an emergency repair. We have to get this in before the next heating cycle, which is
Understandable,
October.
but-
But they will be high efficiency. They'll be replaced with 3 high efficiency smaller boilers, yep.
Thank you.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I know there's no place to put a well, so that's why I was going to ask the questions. The cemetery back there. But in any case, is it gas? It'll be gas. Are the current ones gas, or is it? So everything's gas anyway, so it's just going to the high-efficiency gas. Okay, that's where I was going. Thank you.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? It carries 4-0. Next up is the appropriate amount for $300,000 for construction and reconstruction of the pumping stations and pumping stations equipment. Any questions? Council Orman?
Will this project be similar to the Cullinane Drive pumping station project that you just finished?
Yeah, so this money is for design of these two pump stations, which are sort of next on our list of stations that need to be rehabbed. They're both the size of the stations and the fact that they're fairly close together. We kind of see this as doing these both at once. But this money's for the design work. The pump stations, we like to do what we can in-house on the design side of things, but the pump stations are really, those are projects that you really need a consultant that is, does those every day between the pumps and the motors and the electrical controls and knowing which materials are the ones that are going to be best long-term, you need someone that's in that all the time. So this money is for the design of those two upgrades.
Okay, and once that's done, you have a
Yeah, then it will
ballpark
be,
of what
then it will
works?
be like the Cullinane.
Yeah, and what was the ballpark for the amount for the final project there?
Cullinane, I think it was 1.2 million-ish.
Okay, just so we're ready for that down the road, this being a design only, but we do need to update our infrastructure. Thank you for the answers.
So it will be a short road because we're designing it. The idea is because we're so far into the season now, no sense getting the money for the whole. We're just going to do the design now, and then we'll be coming back down for the next one with the construction estimate for that.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Chair, if there's no other questions, I'll motion for the approval of the design for this Birch Road / Lake Shore Drive design
For the pumping
process
station.
for the pump change.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the $300,000 appropriated bond amount for construction and reconstruction of pumping stations and pumping stations equipment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It carries 4-0.
So
Next up.
Just for a point of clarity, Mr. Chair, so no free cash for this one?
No, it's a 5-year bond.
Okay, just want to make sure they're all on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up is the amount of $2 million for appropriated for water main construction and reconstruction. I'll open that for any discussion on the $2 million bond. Councilor.
If I may, from the panel, can we get an idea of the locations for these water main replacements?
So Lincoln Street, part of that project will be the water main replacement, which is from Highland over the hill to Bolton Street.
Okay.
And Huntington Ave, which is that's an old 4-inch cast iron main that goes off of that main on Lincoln Street, so we'll do that as part of it. That project is be going out to bid shortly, hopefully, so depending on how the bids come in on the water part of that, I know Chris and his group have another wish list of other random, small, old cast iron mains that we may add to this if there's funding for that, generally in the central part of the city.
So the 2 million's covering pretty much Lincoln and Huntington Ave? Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
it will, yeah, we'll cover at least that.
And I'm sure some of the ward councils will be mentioning other roads, and I've already spoken to the mayor about Berlin Road, so we can expect that, because Berlin Road, they can't repave it until they get the infrastructure fixed, but thank you for your answers to my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Orman. Seeing any further discussion, I will entertain a motion. Councilor Fusillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Motion to approve the bond in the amount of $2 million for water main replacements.
Motion's been made, and I'll second that to approve $2 million appropriate amount for the bond for the main construction and water main construction and reconstruction. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Commissioner. Next up. Next up is order number 24-100-9160, proposed ordinance amendment to the City Code, Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 5, preparations of classification descriptions, into Chapter 125, preparation Section 6, salary schedule for new and existing positions in the FY 2025 budget that consist of capital project manager, DPW commissioner, assistant DPW commissioner, city engineer, assistant library director, and reference library part-time. And what I'll do is I'll bring up the director from the library now. We get you in and out on these first two this evening. Good evening, Director Gillette. And these were in the mayor's succession planning budget for FY 2025. And I'll open it up. If you want to just give us a little reference on these two positions. I know one of them is the part-time for the library assistant director, and I'm sorry, for the reference librarian is a part-time position.
Sure, yeah. So the reference librarian part-time positions, we have currently 3 people in that position. It's a position that requires a master's degree, and based on the salary survey that I did, we were behind by a couple dollars per hour. I'd also like to bring it up to be the same pay scale as the new programming and outreach librarian position, as the duties are and skills and experience are often pretty similar for that. So it would turn it into a 7-step schedule. This is a non-union position as well, so that's going in line with the rest of the non-union positions in the city.
Thank you. Thank you, Director.
Any questions about that one?
What's that, Director?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, so, Councilor.
So this person, basically, if you're out of the office, they take your position at that point. They take your responsibilities, correct?
That's for the library assistant director.
Okay, you're
Yes.
still on.
I was just talking about the part-time reference librarians.
You're on the reference librarian.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But that's correct about the assistant director position.
Thank you. And so you did your research to see that the hourly rate that you're providing is within reason. I know Councilor Ossing has a question on how many hours a week, but I was just curious. I'm glad you did your research. It makes sense. If we want to attract people, I keep saying it on this floor, we have to start offering what the going rate is out there. So thank you for your research. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. President Ossing.
Thank you. So starting with the assistant library director position. So again, this isn't going out to hire someone. This is adjusting the salary of a current person. And I just want, so it's a $10,000 increase or a 15% increase. So that's needs to be on the table so people understand that. Because we've got a salary study that's coming, and I'll guarantee you there hasn't been a salary study known to mankind that says to reduce anybody's salary. All right? It's going to come in asking for more money for everybody. And everybody's very generous at this point when it's onesie-twosies. When they all come down, and it's going to want everybody's salary increased, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow on this council. Because it's not just the salary. It's retirement. It's benefits. It compounds. It's taxpayers. So ask the taxpayer, would they agree to a 10% increase? Maybe they would. I don't know. But you've got to understand what you're doing when you're approving this item. So I would say for any of these, the effective date for any of these salary ordinances that we're going to discuss is should be September 1st, and that they all start at step 1 of the salary ordinance. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good.
Sure, and then to talk a little bit about the assistant director position, that is a person that is my successor. So if I were away, they are in charge of the library. As of now, the salary, with it starting at $62,000 and topping at $70,000, is so under anything near our community or other libraries that it would, if this person in the position were to leave, it would be really hard for me to find someone with the skill and experience and knowledge necessary to take my place if something were to happen. I don't know if I would really find anybody that would fit the bill for a city our size and an institution the size that we are.
Councilor Rome.
Mr. Chair, if there's no other questions, and thank you for that information as well, I'd motion. Are we approving both at the same time, or are we doing one
We'll
at a
take
time?
up the first one, which was the library assistant director, which is the 40 hour per week.
Yep. I would motion for approval of the requested amount as shown in the schedule for the 7 steps.
I couldn't
I'm sorry.
decide.
I'm recommending approval or motioning to approve the change in the library assistant director's position salary ordinance as
Yeah, you're right,
provided.
'cause we'd be approving the salary ordinance with an effective date of September 1st, 2024.
Yes.
Starting at step 1.
1. I would make that motion.
Motion has been made. I will, Councilor Doucette.
Yes, I just have a question based on that. You're saying this is for an existing employee?
Yes.
How long have they been in that position?
8 years.
How long?
8 years.
8 years? And, okay, thank you for that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the library assistant director. Motion to approve the salary ordinance with the effective date of 9/1/2024, starting at step 1. Any further discussion? Councilor Doucette.
Thank you. Sorry, just thinking about what she was just saying. If they start at step 1, is it going to be a cut in salary?
No.
Okay, fine. Just wanted clarification for that. Didn't know how to phrase that question, but thank you.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Councilwoman. Next up is the reference library, and that is a part-time position. I know that you did do the oversight. I would entertain a similar, Councilor President Osmond.
So how long have you said there's 3 reference librarians?
Thank
How long have they been in those positions?
One of them has been is at their top, so he's been there for 3 years. And then one has been about 1.5 years, and another one for a little under a year.
So similar thing, I would say the effective date of the new salary ordinance should be September 1st. And then the starting step would be commensurate with their existing salary, because in this particular case, Councilor Doucette, you would be right. If we started them all step 1, that would be a reduction in pay, which we do not want to do. So I would say for these ones, have them start effective date September 1st and start at a step that's commensurate with their current step, right?
No further discussion. I will entertain a motion.
That's a well-put-together motion, and I would ask that we so move that motion for approval.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the reference library position. Motion to approve the salary ordinance with an effective date of 9/1/2024, starting at step 1, unless they are currently at the higher position. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay. Oh, thank you, Director. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, part of the similar succession planning is for the DPW, and we can go right in order of that. The first one is the capital projects manager. I'm thinking that some finance members will have some questions on that, so I don't know if you want to give a little bit of insight on the whole reorganization of that, Commissioner?
Sure. So, a little step down memory lane. John Galoni was the facilities director. He came over to DPW at the time. We merged facilities with DPW. John Galoni left. Another commissioner was hired. Then, for some reason, an assistant commissioner of facilities was hired at over $100,000. That position was not needed. So now that we're in this position here, there needs to be a reorganization here. what we're trying to do is look at what the value to the city is. The value to the city is overseeing where most of the money is in these capital projects and dedicate someone to that. The current assistant city engineer, that's what he excels at. That's what he does for the engineering department right now. He will continue to do, if he's put in this position, continue to do that as well as just overseeing the projects. The engineering department still does engineering. Nothing in engineering changes. Tom still oversees engineering. He still oversees the projects. What you get is a person dedicated to where all the money is being spent on these capital projects. You're getting someone overseeing that, coordinating them all. The facilities projects, you'll get someone who oversees that. Dan Jackson, if you know him, is extremely capable. The commissioner should have no problem overseeing the day-to-day operations of the facilities department. What you need is someone who oversees the bigger projects in facilities, some of the engineering project, as well as these mega projects like the library or the new fire station coming down. There's a lot of money in these projects and they have to be watched. So that's what this reorganization keys on, is eliminating that position that was put forth and approved that was not needed. And now we're putting it where it's needed. So with that, there's an opportunity for the person in that assistant city engineer position to move into it. That allows us to position that position. We've looked at and we've submitted a new job description for that. As part of the succession plan, Tom, as capable as he is, will not be here forever, and we need to have someone to fill his place. The whole point to a succession plan is we don't want a revolving door at the top. We want, even though people retire, we want pretty much the DPW not to change. We don't want to have to bring in someone from the outside and create havoc and all kinds of chaos within a department that's extremely critical to the city. So that's what this does. And we need to, hiring from within is critical because we know who the workers are, we know who the people that give value to the city. The people that give value to the city are the people that care. People from outside don't care. They just don't. If you look at any one of us, we're on the phone, we care. Chris is on vacation, he still comes to this meeting. That's what you're getting. We identify those people. Those are the people we want to succeed in this department, so we continue that value. So this gives us an opportunity in that assistant city engineer position to move someone up from within when they need a little more time to get qualified for the position. And then we'll have someone that can take Tom's place, that will be mentored into that position. So that's kind of what the succession plan is doing for those. It's getting rid of the facilities position that was never needed. It's creating a new one, capital project manager, that's where all the value we get what we want in these big projects. There's so many things that slip through the cracks. There's money that's not accounted for. We need to be on top of this. These third-party vendors, OPMs, they sound like they're great, but they don't care. You need someone in the city who cares. So that's what it's doing, and that's the basics of it. The next level is the the general foreman positions would have increased in complexity over the years. What they used to be is a retirement vehicle for the union people who just wanted to get more money before they retired. Well, that's not happening anymore. We have a higher expectation for our general foreman. They need to coordinate through all divisions. They're on Munis, they do procurement, so they're very active, and they donate a lot of their own time, even though they're salary, and they have the right attitude. So to get those people in there, we feel we need to compensate that. That will be under union negotiations, but that's the other aspect of the succession plan. Just one more thing. One position in this in the DPW is not more important than the other. The commissioner has a responsibility, the next level has a responsibility all. We collaborate and work all together, and we solve problems every day. That's what we're trying to do. That's what this organization chart sets up, and that's what we're trying to do here. So that's what the project's manager position is, capital projects manager is for. So if you have any specific questions, we can answer that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Council Vira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The facilities director, was that the position you said that you didn't need anymore?
Assistant Commissioner of Facilities, correct.
Right.
He's no longer with us.
What was that budgeted for?
Same as the Assistant Commissioner, I think it's 115 now?
115?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you had a position being funded for 115 that really was just making up for someone that wasn't doing their job, pretty much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom, thank you for your overview. It seems to be coming also from not just the knowledge, but from the heart. You see it every day, and I kind of already gave you a sales pitch on the oversight of a school built in Ashland. The actual job description I found very interesting, very much to the goals of what you're looking for. Did you do this on your own? Did you get some help from HR?
We do it.
You did this one. You did a good job.
We review, every time we do a posting, we review all our job positions to tweak it and change it. And I know Councilor Ossing has said that the council wants to review those. We're more than happy to.
We're required to.
Required.
There's other things I'd rather be doing.
It wasn't being done before. Yeah. But, yeah, we do it mostly, then we run it by HR
okay, so for
their input. But
you do
we're the ones
that
that know. It's a specialized thing, and we need to really
Well, and I was interested, too, to see the special requirements to be a certified public purchasing official. That's so important, too, with the oversight that you're looking for within this position. I support it, so I appreciate your response to the need. It makes sense. It makes sense for the succession of your department, and especially the oversight of these projects that we're seeing more and more of. So, I mean, Tom can only do so much. He's our engineer, and if he's trying to do some of this, it gets lost in the footwork. I work with various contractors, and yes, they see different than a city employee who's here every day for the responsibility of the city. So thank you for bringing this.
And Tom still oversees it.
Oh, understandable.
The project is the day-to-day guy.
Yep.
To get intel and to watch what's going on. That's what's
with
critical.
all the different.
Tom still oversees all
Sure.
the engineering.
I'm sure there's several contractors working on many of these street jobs and everything else, so Tom's overseeing the engineering part, but again, I know just from even the questions I get sometimes for concerns about some of the buildings being built, you know, who's overseeing their general contractor. So I support it, and you'll have my vote on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further, President Ossing.
So again, I would recommend that if you approve it, it's got to have an effective date of September 1st, and the starting step is step 1.
Any further discussion? I will entertain a motion for the capital project manager.
I will make that motion, and it starts on September 1st of this year at step 1.
And that would be to approve the salary ordinance with the effective date of 9/1. I will second that motion. Motion to approve the salary ordinance with an effective date of 9/1/2024, starting at step 1, and also to approve the job description. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries 4-0. Next up is the DPW Commissioner. And I'll open that up for any discussion.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. We're talking about the steps we're starting at. Would this be step 1 if the person's been in there already, or because we don't? I see, because right now we have an acting DPW commissioner, so I get it. Okay, so I'd make the same motion for approval of the salary schedule at step 1, I guess starting September 1st, if that's the process we're taking here.
I will, if no further discussion, I will entertain that motion. I will second that motion. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the DPW Commissioner. Motion to approve the salary ordinance. with effective date of 9/1/2024, starting at step 1. Any further discussion? Council Landers?
I'm curious, I guess I can ask this question, I can ask any question I want, I guess. Do you mind sharing what your salary is now as acting commissioner?
I'm not at the top.
I didn't hear that.
So,
I'm not because it's it's a 4-step, I'm at step 3 right now.
Okay.
But I would guess, I don't know if this has ever happened before, but I'll be interim commissioner for over a year, so I guess I'd get a step increase. So I'm not, then I'd go to the 3rd step eventually.
so
Yeah, well, you should.
I'll be interim in August 20th, I'll be interim for a year. So I assume I'd get a step increase at that point.
So, Mr. Chair?
I believe you should.
So the current salary ordinance for the DPW commissioner at step 1, so back in August of last year, it's $123,000. 6 months later, it bumps up to $128,000. In August, it moves up to $133,000. All right? The new ordinance would start his salary at $159,000 with a maximum of $180,000 over the 5-year period. And that doesn't conclude the 2 to 3 to whatever the mayor negotiates for a cost of living increase that's going to be added on every single year.
Thank you, President.
And I'm not saying badly about it. I'm just trying to say it's money and lots of it.
Okay, Mr.
I would
Chairman,
argue
I'm all
that
set on that.
it's severely underfunded before, though, when you try to compare. The previous commissioner that was here left to take two positions down in Worcester for the same price. So, and that doesn't, we have facilities. If you look at the analysis and the comparison of what our DPW does compared to other DPWs, it's not comparable with what we have, so.
Motion was made and seconded. All in favor? Carries 4-0. Next up is the Assistant Commissioner's job. Any questions? President Austin.
Again, same thing, effective 9/1 with a starting at step 1, and they will all get increases. No one's going to get shortchanged any money.
Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So moved on the motion.
Motion's made and seconded for the Assistant Commissioner. Motion to approve the salary ordinance with an effective date of 9/1/2024, starting at step 1. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, it carries 4-0. Next up is the city engineer. President Austin.
Same thing, effective 9/1, starting at step 1.
No further discussions. I will entertain a motion. Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So moved.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the city engineer to approve the salary ordinance with effective date 9/1/2024, starting at step 1. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, just in all fairness, this is the same situation, this position that the person I know has been here for a while now and probably would be step 3 or 4. Is that going to affect the monetary side of it in any way? And I heard the president say no, but I just want to make sure.
So it's a 3-step, current 3-step salary position. The max salary is $115,000, same as the assistant commissioners. They're all getting that same amount of money. They will now all be getting the same amount of money at $131,000 at step 1. So no one will see a pay decrease.
No, that's fine. It just could happen, maybe not in these positions, but I think the motion was made and seconded, so I'm ready to vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor? Carries 4-0.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, Mr. President.
No, the vote's fine. I would ask that the Finance Committee consider advertising, suspension of the rule to advertise these salary ordinances with a 9/1 effective date for a suspension at our July meeting.
I'll ask the committee for that. We all set for suspension. Okay, suspension and to advertise for that 9/1/2024 at the next city council meeting. All in favor of the suspension? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, moving on to order number 24-100-9131, communication from Mayor Dumas with proposed ordinance amendments to City Code Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 5, preparation of classification descriptions, and to Chapter 125, Personnel, Section 6, salary schedule relative to the position of drop-off attendant and junior civil engineer within the Department of Public Works. I'll briefly read the letter submitted by the mayor. Dear Council President Ossing and councils, enclosed for your review and acceptance is a salary ordinance update for the two positions within the Department of Public Works, drop-off attendant and junior civil engineer. These positions were funded at the attached rate in FY24 budget as presented and approved by Mayor Vigil and the City Council. This request is to officially update the salary ordinance step schedule to reflect what was passed within that budget. I have also included an updated job description for the junior civil engineer, which requires approval. The job description for the drop-off attendant was approved by the City Council in 2021. While these updates were approved under the previous administration, the City Council, it is my opinion that they represent an investment in the attraction and retention of these positions. Side agreements with the MMEA have been signed approving these changes. Attached, you will find the memo from the DPW Commissioner Ted Scott, junior civil engineer job description and salary ordinance for both positions. Commissioner Scott and I will be available for a future meeting. Sincerely, Christian Dumas, Mayor. I know, Ted, you've kind of briefed a little bit on this, that this was already in the budget, already taken care of with the unions. If you want to just give a little bit more insight on those two positions.
Sure. I think we mentioned it. The junior engineer position is highly critical, overseeing inspections of the construction projects. The more we can get out there, the more quality we have and oversight. They interface with a lot of residents, the less resident calls you get when they can be out there. In the winter, we have, like Tom says, except for like pump stations or specialized, we can do a lot of design work in-house that saves hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if we can, we have someone that's interested, that's very qualified. We're trying to get this, they're still hanging on. We've been telling them we're trying to get a increase, so if we can get this going, we'll reach out right to them so we could fill that position. So that's for the junior engineer. The attendants, if you've ever been to the drop-off center, the attendants see more people, more Marlboro residents than anybody else in the city. And it's a great interaction. We have one attendant now, full-time, that's it. And we rely on him, and he's great. And he works almost every Saturday. We can't keep imposing on him. We'd like to have 2 full-time and 1 or 2 part-time to be able to do that, and quality people there. We want to hire quality people. We've run through a lot of them since then, but we found a good one, and we want to try to find another one. And we want to try to get that salary up there so we can try to attract someone that is a good face for Marlboro. He's a good face for the DPW and the city, and is a good ambassador for the city. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll open that up to the committee for any questions. Council Orman.
Well, I can attest to the fact that your attendants at the drop-off facility are very pleasant. I enjoy going down there now to say hello, and I like the new system that they don't have to put a new sticker on the car. It's all computerized, so I just wanted to add that to your compliments as well. So they deserve it. It's a tough job. I'm sure they get certain people saying, "What do you mean I can't bring my flooring material?"
Oh, yeah.
I didn't argue when I brought mine. I said, I realized it now. So, no, they handle everything very well down there, in my view, from what I see. And I'm down there every other week, give or take. With that said, I do think we need to keep our salaries at the point where we're going to attract good people, such as what you have presently. So, Mr. Chair, I'm in favor of both positions, salary schedules as presented. I don't know if there's a need for September 1st on these. If so, we'll stay consistent. If there is.
Well, so these are different. These are union positions. They're not non-union positions. So these are agreements signed by the mayor that has the wording that it's effective upon council confirmation. Okay. So in essence, if we approve it, you know, we have to advertise it, we have to vote on it, so it'll get approved in August, so it'll basically be de facto September, but because these are union positions, we don't get, I mean, we could, but then it changes all the agreements he's got to go sign again, so it's not
That's understandable.
worth the aggravation, so.
I thank you for that. So.
And I thank you for the information, Mr. President. With that said,
These were advertised too.
Were they
These
advertised?
ones were advertised,
These
that's
were
correct, yes,
advertised.
then my motion would be to approve as presented.
You good?
Yes?
Yeah, I was gonna say the job description for the civil
Yeah, any
engineer,
further
junior engineer.
discussion? I will entertain that motion. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, to follow on what Councilor Ossling said, so once we approve it in the next council meetings, it'll be effective at that point. I'm seeing lots of heads nodding up and down, so Steve's the most important one, so.
Well, the mayor's got to
Thank you,
sign.
folks.
A motion has been made, and I will second that, to approve the salary ordinance for the drop-off attendant, and motion to approve the salary ordinance and job description for the civil engineer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Councilor. And that concludes it. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? We are adjourned at 8:21 PM. Thank you.